Hey there, this is Della Rucker. I am the principal of the Wise Economy Workshop and author of the recent book, The Local Economy Revolution Has Arrived, What's Changed and How You Can Help. Thanks for joining me today. I'm a little disturbed by this. I looked down and I realized that, there's people in the world who have like pretty bookmarks. They maybe they have a collection of bookmarks and they're like pressed flowers and nice things. I have a ripped off bit of a post-it note as my bookmark, and it's probably ripped off because it's got something on it that I'm supposed to actually know something about. That probably has nothing to do with the book or the reading today. So now you know. And I actually do have nice bookmarks. I just can never find them and never use them. So here we are. There's a few really interesting things going on. One that I particularly want to call your attention to is the Accelerate Us Salon, which is a special discussion group that you're invited to participate in. That's going to be this coming Wednesday night, so May 5th at 7 p.m. It is going to be on your Zoom and Facebook, and you will have the opportunity to participate. But you have to buy a very inexpensive ticket in order to do that. You, by buying that ticket, will also get access to a happy hour with the speakers afterward. And I have to tell you, these speakers who agreed to do this, I'm just, the closer we get to it, the more I'm just blown out of the water that these people were actually willing to take the time to be part of a discussion like this, because who knows what'll happen. But these are four incredible individuals, including an impact investor who's the founder of the SOCAP conference, which is the social impact investor conference in the world. The founder of Co-Starters, which is probably the biggest entrepreneurship network that you'll find anywhere. And the executive director of the American Independent Business Alliance, and the guy that I really think is just the rising star of the startup ecosystem in Wisconsin. So it's four guys who are just spectacular. And I am so looking forward to this conversation. So don't delay. It's Wednesday night. You want to be able to participate in this. Get your tickets now. So if you go to if you go on to this thread and you look farther down in this thread, you will find the link, and I will also post it on here afterward. Okay? You don't want to miss that. That's going to be a spectacular, mind-blowing kind of conversation. So today we started a transition. We had been talking through the first principles, which are kind of like the guiding sort of foundational elements of the local economy revolution has arrived. And having gone through all of those, I decided I was just going to start reading some of the pieces in this book that I particularly like. Obviously, I wrote it, so I more or less like all of it, but there's a few that are particularly important to me, and this is one. And it's one in part because it's a very personal story. It's actually mostly about my father, who is kind of a recurring theme all through the book. Even though the book is written in sort of short essays like blog posts, and they're designed to sort of come at the core questions from a variety of angles so that you can kind of think about it holistically. My father shows up over and over and over again through this book. And he passed now close to 20 years ago. But so it's amazing to me how much his story and how much his presence just still really influences me even all this time later. So the chapter or the essay that I'm going to read today, the short piece, is called I See Usability. That was my dad's favorite saying. Dad had no hesitation about pulling things off the curb in front of the neighbors' houses. But he wasn't looking for salvage or a quick couple of dollars. He was looking for usability. You'd probably call Dad a tinkerer. He always had projects in process, a car or 3 in various stages of disassembly on their way to being restored, or an electronic gadget he insisted would work again if he could just find that loose wire, or an idea for making something from the extra tin cans he brought home from the factory, or the brass-plated fittings that a friend at the foundry gave him, or the pile of tire irons that he found on garbage day around the corner. When I grew up and I went home to visit, I knew he would want my undivided attention as he showed me his latest finds and played out his new ideas for making flower pots or bird feeders or paintbrush holders or whatever. One of my strongest memories. He would pull himself up to his full, but not very tall, height. He would puff out his very slight chest. He'd hold up what looked like a random piece of junk, and he would declare, I see usability. I'd nod and I'd smile, but I didn't see it. And even when he did complete something, which didn't always happen, I failed to see the achievement in it. These weren't great works of art by any stretch. But Dad never said that he was going for artistry. He saw usability. Maybe this is why my dad, who never finished college, understood the value of old places long before I did. Growing up in the small town where he had also gone to high school, the buildings and the houses all around me just seemed tired. I knew that my friends who lived in the newer neighborhoods had whole house air conditioning, heat ducts instead of the metal radiator in my room that clunked and hissed but seldom seemed to heat anything, and walls that didn't require tedious, unending paint scraping every damn summer. I did eventually turn into a historic preservation specialist during the 1990s. I have the distinction of being responsible for listing some of the ugliest buildings on the National Register of Historic Places. In northern Wisconsin at that time, preservation mostly mattered to a few. Well, the common perception was crackpots. As late as the early 1990s, Green Bay still had a 1960s era blight removal plan that identified most old downtown buildings for demolition as soon as the city could get a hold of them. I crawled through the basement of one of the final ones, documenting its last days before it was demolished. I still have the photos. Green Bay at the time was just starting to understand the economic benefits of preservation But Dad understood entirely. He started to mail me clippings from the Cleveland papers. Remember, actual like clippings. And when I got on the phone with him, he was more excited to talk about a building or a bridge rehab that he'd read about in the paper than about what he and Mom were doing. About 9 months before my second son was born, Dad was diagnosed with a brain tumor. My last time with him was about a month before the baby was due. The last time I could travel from Cincinnati, where we lived, to Cleveland, which is a drive of about 3.5 hours. Shortly before I left to go back to Cincinnati, Dad sat me on the couch and he pulled out a large envelope full of clippings. By this point, the cancer in the speech center of his brain was wreaking havoc on his ability to read or write. And my name on the outside of that envelope was spelled with 3 L's. We spent a long time going through those clippings. All sorts of building rehabs and downtown revitalization stories in Cleveland and South Carolina and places I'd never heard of. And at one point, he looked at me directly. And he told me that he was proud of me and that what I was doing was important. This at a time when I doubted whether I could keep working. With a toddler at home and a baby on the way, when the cultural pressure to hang it up seemed to roar constantly in my ears. These places matter. What you're doing to help them matters. I see usability. Dad died a week after Jonathan, that baby, was born. We gave John his name because that was one of 5 that Dad had proposed when we asked him what we should name the baby. After all these years and all this reading and listening and talking, I still don't fully understand why places, and particularly old places, matter to us. Obviously, there's the sense of history, the fact that these are often places that were built at the human scale and are thus more comfortable for us, the solidness of the materials, so on and so on and so on. But why do they matter so much and on such a primal level? Maybe it's because even the most rundown, aesthetically unpleasing places have usability. They so often have the potential to be so much more than they are. And that is where their greatest value, emotionally and economically, lies. So, again, that's a piece called I See Usability that's in this book. The Local Economy Revolution Has Arrived. What's changed and how you can help. This is available anywhere you get your books, and especially available at gugu.com and at gumroad.com, where you can get it in print or in digital ebook format. Again, thank you so much for spending the time with me today. It's kind of an amazing little trip down memory lane to reread that essay at this point. Um, but it's important, I think. When we see usability in ourselves, in addition to the places around us, I think that's pretty transformative. And certainly it's important when we share that insight with others. So thanks again, and go get them. Have a great weekend. See you Monday.